I sat alone in my cap and gown among thousands of celebrating families at my medical school graduation. My phone showed 17 missed calls from my sister Madison, demanding money for a car, while my parents deliberately skipped the most important day of my life. After sacrificing everything to become a doctor and lending my family over $40,000 during school, I discovered they had been lying about family emergencies while living lavishly. Now they wanted $87,000 for Madison's first car, which was actually a luxury BMW. My response would change everything forever. The morning of graduation began with hope. I adjusted my cap one final time, checking my reflection in the dormitory mirror before heading to UCLA Medical School's commencement ceremony. 4 years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice had led to this moment. I had reserved 3 seats in the family section for my parents Linda and Robert, plus my younger sister Madison. They promised they would be there. Growing up in suburban Phoenix, I learned early that Madison was the golden child. While she received praise for mediocre grades, my straight A's earned lukewarm acknowledgement. When Madison wanted dance lessons, art supplies, or designer clothes, the answer was always yes. When I asked for a graphing calculator for advanced placement calculus, I was told to figure it out yourself because money was tight. This pattern continued through high school. Madison's prom dress cost $800. My debate team uniform came from Goodwill. She received a brand new Honda Civic for her 16th birthday. I worked 30 hours a week at a grocery store to buy a rusted pickup truck with 200,000 miles. College applications revealed the true disparity. Madison's private liberal arts education was funded entirely by our parents. I earned a partial scholarship to Arizona State University and covered the rest through student loans and night shifts at a 24-hour diner. Medical school intensified my financial struggles while my family's lifestyle seemed to improve mysteriously. I lived in a studio apartment that barely qualified as habitable, surviving on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. Meanwhile, my parents' social media showed restaurant dinners, weekend getaways, and home renovations. When I questioned this contradiction, they explained that Robert's contracting business was finally profitable after years of difficulty. The emergency call started during my second year. Madison's transmission failed, requiring immediate repair. Linda needed expensive dental work after an accident. Robert's business faced bankruptcy without an urgent cash infusion. Being raised to believe family comes first, I wired money every time. My entire work-study paycheck from the hospital lab went to cover Madison's car payments. My textbook budget became Linda's spa treatments. My meal plan money became Robert's business expenses. Each crisis felt legitimate because they presented documentation. Madison sent photos of her damaged car. Linda forwarded dental estimates. Robert shared business invoices. I never questioned their authenticity because doubting family felt wrong. Instead, I picked up extra shifts in the laboratory, cleaned medical offices on weekends, and sold plasma twice weekly to afford my education while supporting their emergencies. The pattern escalated during my third year when clinical rotations demanded more time but paid nothing. My family's emergencies multiplied accordingly. Madison's laptop crashed before finals requiring a $3,000 replacement. Linda's car needed a new engine worth $5,000. Robert's equipment broke, demanding immediate replacement, costing $7,000. Each emergency came with tearful phone calls, guilt about being the only successful family member, and promises that this would be the last time. I calculated that I had sent $43,000 to my family during medical school. This money came from my savings work-study income and even small loans from classmates who believed I was supporting genuine family crises. My own life became increasingly sparse while theirs appeared increasingly comfortable, but I convinced myself this sacrifice demonstrated love and loyalty. Yesterday morning, I called to confirm their arrival time for graduation. Linda answered with obvious irritation, explaining they had decided not to attend because it's just school stuff, and we've already celebrated enough of your achievements. Robert took the phone to add that watching me walk across a stage for 5 minutes wasn't worth the travel expense from Arizona to California. Madison could be heard laughing in the background about plans to go shopping instead. The ceremony began with traditional pomp and circumstance. Families filled every seat except mine. As the dean called graduating students alphabetically, I watched proud parents, siblings, and grandparents cheering for their loved ones. When Sherman Williams echoed through the auditorium, the silence from my section felt deafening. My phone buzzed during the recessional. Madison's text read, "Need 87,000 for first car. Send by tonight. BMW dealer won't hold it longer." The casualness of her demand combined with my family's absence from the most important day of my life created a moment of perfect clarity. This wasn't about emergencies or necessity. This was about entitlement and exploitation. I opened social media to distract myself from the pain of celebrating alone. My parents had posted photos 2 hours earlier from a Hawaiian resort showing expensive cocktails and oceanfront dining. The timestamps proved they were vacationing during my graduation, deliberately choosing luxury over supporting their son's achievement. Standing outside the auditorium as families posed for photos, I dove deeper into my parents' social media accounts. What I discovered shattered every lie they had told me over the past 4 years. Their Instagram stories revealed months of contradictory evidence about their supposed financial struggles. Robert's failing business had actually expanded significantly. His company's Facebook page showcased new commercial properties, luxury work vehicles, and a staff that had doubled in size. Recent posts advertised high-end renovation projects for wealthy clients, complete with before and after photos of expensive materials and custom designs. The timeline showed this growth coinciding exactly with my emergency money transfers. Linda's emergency dental work happened during the same week she posted photos from a cosmetic surgery clinic, complete with hashtags about treating herself and new confidence. Her social media documented regular shopping sprees, expensive hair treatments, and weekly nail salon visits. The dental emergency that cost me $5,000 was actually elective cosmetic procedures she wanted but didn't need. Madison's transportation crises told an equally infuriating story. While claiming her car needed constant expensive repairs, her photos showed her driving different luxury vehicles each semester. Her college friends tagged her in posts featuring BMW convertibles, Mercedes sedans, and Audi sports cars. The transmission failure that cost me $3,000 never existed. She had been rotating through borrowed cars from wealthy sorority sisters while keeping my money for shopping and entertainment. My phone rang as I sat alone on a bench outside the graduation venue. Linda's face appeared on the video call, her background showing a hotel suite with ocean views. She wore jewelry I'd never seen before and held a tropical drink garnished with fruit and paper umbrellas. "Sherman, we need to talk about this money situation," she began without acknowledging my graduation or apologizing for their absence. "Madison really needs this car, and you're being selfish by making her wait." Robert appeared beside her wearing a Hawaiian shirt and gold watch. "Son, you've got to understand family responsibilities. You're making doctor money now, so you need to help your sister get started in life." "I just graduated medical school today," I said quietly. "I start residency next month making $55,000 a year. I'm not making doctor money yet." "That's still more than we ever had," Linda snapped. "Madison has been through so much stress in college. She deserves something nice." Madison joined the call from what appeared to be an expensive boutique trying on designer sunglasses while talking. Sherman, you're being such a drama queen about everything. It's just money and family helps family. My childhood friend Jake, now a fellow physician, had been waiting nearby and witnessed this entire conversation. He sat beside me as my family's entitlement played out in real time. Did you know I sent you over $40,000 during medical school? I asked them. And we appreciated it, Robert replied dismissively. But that doesn't mean you stop helping when your family needs you. The breaking point came when I discovered another layer of deception. During our video call, I received a Facebook notification about being tagged in a post. My Aunt Susan had shared a fundraising page my parents created claiming I was struggling financially and needed community support for medical school expenses. The page featured a photo of me looking exhausted during finals week with a story about their brilliant but struggling son who needs help achieving his dreams. While I was sending them my last dollar, they were collecting donations from our community by portraying me as the one in financial distress. The fundraiser had collected over $12,000 from family friends, church members, and former teachers who believed they were helping me. My parents had been collecting money both from me and about me simultaneously. You started a fundraiser claiming I needed money while I was sending you my savings. I confronted them. People wanted to help? Linda shrugged. We figured we'd give it to you eventually. Where's that money now? Madison laughed in the background. We spent it on the Hawaii trip. You said you wanted us to enjoy life. Jake squeezed my shoulder as the reality hit me. My family had been running a sophisticated financial manipulation scheme with me as both victim and unknowing cover story. They had destroyed my financial stability during medical school, isolated me from potential support systems by claiming I was too proud to accept help, and portrayed themselves as struggling while living lavishly off my sacrifices. The video call ended when Robert hung up after declaring, "You have 24 hours to send Madison's car money, or we'll know where your loyalties really lie." Returning to my cramped studio apartment felt different this time. Instead of seeing a temporary sacrifice for family, I recognized it as the result of systematic financial abuse. My furniture consisted of a mattress on the floor, a plastic desk, and a folding chair. My kitchen contained one pot, one plate, and basic utensils. This poverty wasn't noble sacrifice. It was the consequence of giving everything to people who saw me as an ATM rather than family. I spent the evening documenting everything I had discovered: screenshots of their social media posts, bank records of money transfers, text messages requesting emergency funds. The contrasting timeline painted a clear picture of deliberate deception spanning 4 years. Madison's car fund demand kept buzzing my phone with increasing aggression. Her messages evolved from requests to demands to threats. You have 6 hours, or I'm telling everyone what a selfish brother you are. Then, Dad says, if you don't send this money, you're not family anymore. Finally, I hope you're happy ruining my life because you're too greedy to help. I drafted several responses. The first was a detailed explanation of their lies and my sacrifices. The second was an angry confrontation about their manipulation. The third was a plea for them to understand my financial situation. None felt right because they all assumed my family was capable of rational discussion or genuine remorse. My colleague Emma, a psychiatric resident, had invited me to a graduation party I initially declined due to family obligations. When I called to see if the invitation still stood, she immediately recognized something was wrong in my voice. Over coffee, I explained the situation while she listened with professional insight. Sherman, what you're describing is financial abuse, combined with emotional manipulation, she said gently. Your family has conditioned you to believe their wants are more important than your needs. But they're still family. Family doesn't exploit each other. Family doesn't lie about emergencies to steal money. Family doesn't skip your medical school graduation to vacation in Hawaii. Her words crystallized my new understanding. This wasn't about money. It was about control, entitlement, and exploitation disguised as family loyalty. At 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes before Madison's arbitrary deadline, I sent exactly $1 through the payment app with the note, "Good luck." It was perfect in its simplicity. Not angry, not confrontational, just a clear message that her sense of entitlement over my money had ended. My phone exploded immediately. Linda called screaming about ungrateful children and threatening to teach me respect. Robert left voicemails about family obligations and my responsibilities as the successful son. Madison sent increasingly hysterical texts calling me selfish and claiming I had ruined her entire future. The psychological relief was immediate and profound. For 4 years, every dollar I spent on myself felt guilty because it could have gone to family emergencies. Every meal I bought, every medical textbook I purchased, every basic necessity felt selfish because my family claimed constant crises. That artificial guilt evaporated the moment I chose my well-being over their manipulation. I blocked their phone numbers and social media accounts. The silence felt foreign after years of constant crisis calls, but it was peaceful silence rather than anxious waiting for the next emergency. The next morning, I called a locksmith to change my apartment locks. This felt dramatic, but Emma had warned me that families accustomed to financial control often escalate to other forms of invasion when their income source resists. The locksmith, a middle-aged man named Tony, noticed my medical school diploma while working. "Just graduated?" he asked. "Yesterday." "Family proud?" I hesitated. "It's complicated." Tony nodded knowingly. "Sometimes the people who should celebrate us the most are the ones who resent us the most. Success threatens people who prefer you dependent." As he installed new deadbolts, I felt like I was literally locking out years of manipulation and opening the door to authentic relationships. That night, I slept better than I had in 4 years, free from the anxiety of wondering which family crisis would drain my next paycheck. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. When I answered, an elderly voice asked, "Sherman, is this really you?" It was my grandmother Rose, my father's mother, whom I hadn't spoken to in months due to my hectic medical school schedule. "Grandma, how did you get this number?" "I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Your parents said you changed your phone and didn't want family contact because you were too busy with doctor training." Another lie, they had been intercepting my grandmother's attempts to contact me. "I never changed my number, Grandma. I've wanted to talk to you." "Well, that explains a lot. I've been sending you money every month through your parents. They said you were too proud to accept help directly, so I've been giving them $500 monthly to pass along for your expenses." My blood ran cold. During my worst financial struggles when I was selling plasma and skipping meals, my grandmother had been sending money my parents intercepted. They had stolen not just my money, but also my grandmother's support, leaving me isolated and desperate while they funded their luxurious lifestyle. "Grandma, I never received any money from you." The silence stretched long before she spoke again, her voice shaking with anger. "Sherman, I think we need to talk in person." 3 days after changing my locks, I was awakened at 6 a.m. by aggressive pounding on my door. Through the peephole, I saw 2 uniformed police officers checking their notepads and looking serious. My heart raced as I wondered what emergency could bring law enforcement to my apartment. "Sherman Williams," the taller officer asked when I opened the door. "Yes, that's me." "I'm Detective Morris. This is Officer Patterson. We're responding to a theft and fraud report filed by Robert Williams. Are you related to Robert Williams?" "He's my father." Detective Morris consulted his notepad. "Sir, we need to ask you some questions about financial transactions between you and your family. Your father claims you've been stealing money from their business and extorting funds from your grandmother. The accusation hit like ice water. My parents had escalated from emotional manipulation to criminal accusations attempting to use law enforcement to force my compliance with their demands. Officers, may I show you some documentation? I think there's been a misunderstanding." I invited them inside my sparse apartment where my medical school diploma hung beside my computer. Officer Patterson, younger and more approachable than his partner, noticed the diploma immediately. "You just graduated medical school 3 days ago. Congratulations, that's a huge accomplishment." I pulled up my laptop and began showing them evidence. Bank statements proved every money transfer to my family was voluntary, initiated by me in response to their emergency requests. Text message screenshots showed their demands and my willing compliance. Social media evidence demonstrated their false claims about financial hardship while living lavishly. Detective Morris, initially skeptical, became increasingly interested as the evidence mounted. "Mr. Williams, these messages show them asking you for money, not you demanding money from them." "That's correct. Over 4 years, I sent them approximately $43,000 for various emergencies that I now know were fabricated." Officer Patterson reviewed the social media screenshots. "So they were posting about expensive vacations while claiming they needed money for business emergencies?" "Yes." "They were also intercepting money my grandmother sent for my expenses. She's been sending $500 monthly that I never received." Detective Morris closed his notepad. "Mr. Williams, based on this evidence, it appears you're the victim of financial fraud, not the perpetrator. The report your father filed contains false information." Officer Patterson, who had been studying my bank records, looked up with recognition in his eyes. "I've seen this pattern before. Family financial abuse is more common than people realize. My own brother did something similar during college." The officers explained that my parents had contacted several relatives to pressure police for investigation, claiming I was mentally unstable from medical school stress and had developed a gambling addiction that led to stealing family money. They had also suggested I was manipulating my elderly grandmother for financial gain. "Is there any truth to claims about gambling or substance abuse?" Detective Morris asked professionally. "No, sir. I can provide medical records or drug test results if needed. I've been too busy with medical school to develop any expensive habits." Officer Patterson smiled. "I doubt someone completes medical school with a gambling or drug problem." Before leaving, Detective Morris warned me that my parents might escalate their tactics. "Sometimes when false police reports don't work, people try other forms of harassment. Document everything and call us if they contact you directly." After the officers left, I realized I needed legal protection beyond police reports. The accusation of theft and fraud could potentially damage my medical career if my parents continued spreading false information. I researched attorneys specializing in family financial abuse and found David Chen, whose reviews mentioned successful cases involving adult children victimized by manipulative parents. David's office was located in a professional building near the hospital where I would begin my emergency medicine residency. During our consultation, he listened to my story with practiced understanding, taking notes and asking specific questions about documentation. "Sherman, what you're describing constitutes several potential crimes, but not the ones your parents reported. Financial elder abuse regarding your grandmother identity theft, if they used your information for credit, and filing false police reports are all serious offenses." "I don't want to destroy my family. I just want them to stop harassing me." Sometimes protecting yourself requires holding people accountable for their actions. Let's start by running a credit report to see if they've opened accounts in your name. David ordered comprehensive credit reports from all 3 bureaus. While waiting for results, he explained that family financial abuse often involves multiple layers of fraud that victims don't discover until they start investigating thoroughly. Most adult children in your situation focus on the emotional betrayal and miss the legal implications. Your parents may have committed federal crimes that expose them to serious consequences. My phone rang with another unknown number. This time it was my Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, calling to check on my mental health after hearing about my breakdown from Linda. "Sherman, honey, your mother is worried about you. She says you've been acting strange and making wild accusations about money." I realized my parents were conducting a coordinated campaign to portray me as mentally unstable, probably to discredit my accusations if I reported their fraud. They were turning my extended family into unknowing allies by feeding them false information about my psychological state. Aunt Susan, I just graduated medical school. I'm starting my residency next month. I'm not having a breakdown. But Linda said you accused them of stealing money and filed false police reports. The irony was perfect. They had filed false police reports against me while claiming I filed false reports against them. My parents were experts at projection and misdirection. Would you like to see bank records of the money I sent them? Or social media posts showing them vacationing in Hawaii during my graduation? The evidence spoke for itself. Aunt Susan grew quiet as I explained the situation objectively. By the end of our conversation, she apologized for believing my parents without hearing my side of the story. David called the next morning with disturbing news about my credit report. Sherman, we have a serious problem. There are multiple credit cards, student loans, and personal loans in your name that you didn't authorize. The total fraudulent debt is approximately $60,000. My parents had been stealing my identity for years, using my credit to fund their lifestyle while destroying my financial future. The crime was far worse than I had imagined. Attorney David Chen spread my credit reports across his conference table like evidence at a crime scene. Each page revealed another unauthorized account my parents had opened using my personal information. Credit cards from major banks, student loans I had never applied for, personal loans with predatory interest rates, and even a home equity line of credit somehow connected to my identity despite my never owning property. The earliest unauthorized account dates back 6 years during your undergraduate studies. David explained, pointing to a credit card application from my sophomore year. This suggests your parents have been systematically stealing your identity since you became an adult. The pattern was sophisticated and deliberate. They had opened accounts gradually to avoid triggering fraud alerts, made minimum payments to maintain good standing, and used my expected future earning potential as a doctor to qualify for larger credit lines. My good grades and medical school acceptance had actually enabled their fraud by making me an attractive credit risk. How did they get approval without my signature? They had access to your social security number, birth certificate, and personal information. Some applications can be completed online without physical signatures. Others were probably signed with forged signatures. David explained that identity theft by family members was particularly difficult to detect because victims trusted the perpetrators and often provided personal information willingly for legitimate purposes like insurance or tax documents. The total fraudulent debt is approximately $62,000. This explains how they afforded their lifestyle improvements while claiming financial hardship. My phone buzzed with notifications from Facebook and Instagram. My parents had launched a social media campaign portraying me as an ungrateful son who had abandoned his family after becoming successful. Linda posted a lengthy message about raising an entitled child who forgot where he came from once he achieved financial success. Robert shared articles about ungrateful children and wealthy people who refuse to help their families, adding comments about children who think they're too good for the people who raised them. Madison posted photos of herself crying with captions about her brother breaking her heart by refusing to help with basic necessities. Their posts generated sympathy from people who didn't know the full story. Family friends commented with support for my parents and criticism of my selfishness. Former neighbors shared memories of my childhood, questioning how I could treat such devoted parents badly. The social media assault was designed to isolate me from potential support systems and pressure me into compliance through public shame. By controlling the narrative and presenting themselves as victims, they were attempting to force my surrender through community pressure. David documented these posts as evidence of harassment and defamation. They're trying to damage your reputation professionally and personally. This could potentially affect your medical career if hospital administrators see these posts. My worst fears materialized that afternoon when my phone rang with a call from Dr. Williams' program director for my emergency medicine residency. My parents had contacted the hospital claiming I was mentally unstable and financially irresponsible, suggesting I posed a risk to patients and colleagues. Dr. Williams, I can explain this situation completely, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Sherman, I've received some concerning calls about your family situation and your mental health. While I don't typically involve myself in residents' personal lives, questions about financial responsibility and emotional stability are relevant to patient care. Dr. Williams agreed to meet the next morning to discuss the situation. I prepared comprehensive documentation, including bank records, text messages, credit reports, and police reports to present an objective timeline of my family's fraud and harassment. The meeting revealed Dr. Williams to be compassionate and perceptive. As a physician with 30 years of experience, he had encountered family dynamics among medical students and residents that range from supportive to destructive. Sherman, I've seen this pattern before. High-achieving students often come from families that initially encourage success, but become resentful when that success creates independence. Your documentation is thorough and convincing. Dr. Williams referred me to the hospital's legal department and offered to provide a professional reference if I needed support for identity theft prosecution. His endorsement felt particularly meaningful because medical residency programs valued ethical behavior and financial responsibility above almost everything else. My colleague Sarah, who had finished her psychiatry residency the previous year, helped me organize a legal fund through our medical school alumni network. When word spread about my family's harassment campaign, other physicians shared similar stories of family financial abuse and manipulation. Dr. Peterson, an attending physician, contributed to my legal fund with a note. My siblings tried something similar during residency. Standing up to family financial abuse takes courage, but it's necessary for your well-being and professional future. The support from medical colleagues created a stark contrast to my biological family's treatment. These people who had known me for 4 years of medical school believed in my character and integrity. My parents, who had raised me for 26 years, were willing to destroy my reputation and career to maintain their financial exploitation. David filed comprehensive police reports about the identity theft and began disputing fraudulent accounts with credit bureaus. The process would take months, but federal law protected victims of identity theft and required creditors to remove unauthorized accounts. Sherman, I need to warn you that prosecuting family members for identity theft often leads to estrangement. Are you prepared for the possibility that your relationship with your parents will be permanently damaged? I thought about their deliberate absence from my graduation, their lies about family emergencies, their theft of money my grandmother sent for my support, and their attempts to destroy my medical career through false accusations. David, I think they already destroyed the relationship. I'm just making it official. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor. My grandmother Rose arrived at my apartment without warning, carrying a small suitcase and looking determined. Grandma, what are you doing here? I'm investigating this family situation personally, and I have information you need to see. Grandmother Rose revealed that she had been conducting her own investigation into my parents' financial activities after our phone conversation revealed they had intercepted her monthly support payments. Sherman, I hired a private investigator to look into your parents' finances. What we discovered is worse than you know. Grandmother Rose spread financial documents across my small kitchen table with the precision of someone accustomed to organizing important paperwork. At 78 years old, she had maintained the sharp intellect and attention to detail that made her successful as a bookkeeper for 40 years before retirement. I started getting suspicious when your parents' lifestyle improved dramatically while they kept asking for emergency money. She began adjusting her reading glasses. The timeline didn't make sense. Her private investigator, a retired police officer named Frank Morrison, had discovered a sophisticated fraud operation targeting elderly family members across multiple states. My parents weren't just stealing from me and grandmother Rose. They had been systematically defrauding my father's relatives for over a decade. Uncle Frank in Denver has been sending your father $500 monthly for 3 years for a supposed medical condition that doesn't exist, grandmother Rose explained. Aunt Dorothy in Michigan has been paying for Madison's fake college expenses that are actually covered by scholarships. Great Aunt Helen in Florida has been funding Robert's business emergencies while his company was actually profitable. The investigative report revealed financial records showing my parents had collected over $200,000 from elderly relatives through fabricated emergencies. They had created elaborate stories about medical bills, business failures, educational expenses, and family crises that required immediate financial intervention. How did they coordinate all these lies? They kept detailed records of which stories they told to which relatives. Linda maintained spreadsheets tracking who believed which emergencies and how much money each person had available. Grandmother Rose showed me photographs of documents the investigator had obtained through public records and financial databases. My parents had incorporated Robert's contracting business, purchased rental properties, and invested in stock portfolios while claiming poverty to family members. The Hawaii vacation they took during your graduation cost $12,000. They paid for it with money Great Aunt Helen sent for Madison's fake medical emergency. My phone rang with a call from FBI agent Martinez, whom David had contacted about the identity theft. Agent Martinez explained that financial fraud targeting elderly victims was a federal crime that triggered serious law enforcement interest. Mr. Williams, your attorney, provided documentation of systematic fraud affecting multiple elderly victims across state lines. This falls under federal jurisdiction for organized financial crimes. Agent Martinez requested a meeting to discuss my family's activities and gather evidence for potential prosecution. The FBI took elderly financial abuse seriously because seniors were particularly vulnerable to manipulation by trusted family members. We're also interested in the identity theft aspects of this case. Using someone's credit to fund fraudulent schemes adds additional federal charges. The next morning, I met with Agent Martinez at the FBI field office. Her professional demeanor and detailed questions demonstrated the seriousness of federal investigation into my family's activities. Sherman, your documentation is exceptionally thorough. Most victims of family financial fraud don't maintain such detailed records. I was trying to understand why I kept running out of money despite working constantly. Agent Martinez explained that my parents' activities constituted organized financial fraud under federal racketeering statutes. The systematic targeting of elderly victims' use of interstate communications for fraud and identity theft created a complex criminal case. We're going to interview the other victims to gather testimony about their experiences. Your grandmother's investigative work provided an excellent roadmap for our investigation. Meanwhile, other family members began contacting me as news of the FBI investigation spread through our extended family network. Uncle Frank called from Denver, confused and embarrassed about being deceived. Sherman: I thought I was helping your father pay for cancer treatment. He sent me fake medical bills and insurance documents. Aunt Dorothy expressed similar shame about being manipulated. Madison sent me pictures of herself crying about not being able to afford textbooks. I thought I was helping my niece get an education. Great Aunt Helen, the most financially vulnerable victim at 84 years old, had sent over $30,000 for various fabricated emergencies over 5 years. Her fixed income from Social Security had been substantially depleted by my parents' fraud. Dr. Williams called with an update about my residency status. Sherman, the hospital legal department, reviewed your situation and confirms you're the victim, not the perpetrator of financial crimes. Your residency position is secure. Sarah organized a support group meeting for medical residents who had experienced family financial abuse. The gathering revealed that family exploitation of successful adult children was more common than I had realized. My parents demanded I pay their mortgage because I was making doctor money, shared Tom, a radiology resident. They claimed I owed them for 18 years of raising me. My sister wanted me to fund her wedding because I was the rich one in the family, added Jennifer, an internal medicine resident. When I refused, she told everyone I was selfish and greedy. These stories created perspective on my situation. Family financial abuse was a recognized pattern affecting many high-achieving adults whose success made them targets for manipulation by relatives who felt entitled to their earnings. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Sherman, I want to make things right between us. Can we talk privately? After consulting with David and Agent Martinez, I agreed to meet Madison at a neutral location. The FBI was interested in gathering evidence about her knowledge and participation in the fraud scheme. Madison chose an upscale coffee shop near the university, arriving in designer clothes and expensive jewelry that contradicted her claims of financial need. Her demeanor seemed nervous and rehearsed rather than genuinely apologetic. Sherman, I know things got out of hand, but family should stick together. Mom and Dad made mistakes, but they love you. Something felt wrong about her approach. Madison kept steering the conversation toward getting me to admit making false accusations against our parents. She asked leading questions about whether I had exaggerated their financial situation or misunderstood their intentions. Madison, are you wearing a recording device? Her face flushed red, confirming my suspicion. My own sister was attempting to gather evidence for my parents' defense by getting me to recant my accusations or admit to lying about their fraud. I'm trying to help fix this family, she protested weakly. By secretly recording our conversation to help the people who committed federal crimes, I left the coffee shop immediately and called Agent Martinez to report the attempted entrapment. This incident demonstrated that Madison was an active participant in my parents' schemes rather than an innocent victim manipulated by them. Sherman, attempted witness tampering is another federal crime. Your sister just made the prosecution case stronger. The FBI investigation accelerated as evidence mounted against my parents. Financial records victim testimony and documented lies created an overwhelming case for federal prosecution. Dr. Williams offered additional support as my residency began. Sherman, you've shown remarkable resilience and integrity throughout this ordeal. Those qualities will make you an excellent physician. The irony was powerful. My biological family had tried to destroy my medical career to protect their criminal activities. My chosen family of medical colleagues had supported my integrity and defended my professional reputation. The contrast illuminated the difference between people who claim to love you and people who actually support your well-being. Agent Martinez called with significant news. Sherman, we're prepared to file federal charges against your parents and sister. The evidence is comprehensive and the crimes are serious. 6 months after my medical school graduation, I sat in a federal courthouse watching my parents enter guilty pleas for charges, including mail fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, and financial elder abuse. The investigation had uncovered evidence of systematic fraud affecting 11 elderly victims across 6 states with total damages exceeding $300,000. Robert, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his usual expensive clothes, pleaded guilty to organizing the fraud scheme and received 3 years in federal prison. Linda, who had maintained detailed records of their lies and coordinated victim manipulation, received 18 months. Their guilty pleas avoided a lengthy trial that would have been even more emotionally devastating for all victims. Madison accepted a cooperation agreement testifying against our parents in exchange for probation and community service. Her testimony revealed the depth of planning behind their fraud, including spreadsheets tracking which relatives believed which stories and databases of personal information used for identity theft. The defendants exploited family relationships and elderly vulnerability for personal financial gain, Judge Harrison stated during sentencing. Financial elder abuse represents a particularly cruel crime because it targets people who should be able to trust their family members. The court ordered full restitution to all victims, including me and the elderly relatives. Federal asset forfeiture laws allowed seizure of property purchased with fraud proceeds, including my parents' house vehicles and investment accounts. The Hawaii vacation photos that had revealed their deception became evidence in asset recovery proceedings. My credit score was restored after David successfully disputed all fraudulent accounts. The identity theft prosecution resulted in criminal records that made it virtually impossible for my parents to obtain credit in the future, effectively ending their ability to victimize others financially. Grandmother Rose, now 80, had recovered most of her stolen money through restitution orders. Her investigative work had been crucial to the federal case, and Agent Martinez commended her thorough documentation during the sentencing hearing. Rose Williams demonstrated that elderly Americans are not helpless victims, Agent Martinez told the court. Her investigation protected other potential victims and ensured justice for this fraud scheme. During my first year of emergency medicine residency, I volunteered with organizations supporting survivors of family financial abuse. Speaking at support groups helped other victims understand they weren't alone in experiencing manipulation disguised as family loyalty. Financial abuse thrives on isolation and shame, I explained to one support group. Victims often blame themselves for trusting family members who exploited that trust. My relationship with Grandmother Rose deepened as we healed together from the betrayal. She moved to California to be closer to me, finding a senior community near the hospital where I worked. Our weekly dinners became opportunities to discuss family dynamics, personal growth, and the difference between healthy and toxic relationships. Sherman, real love doesn't demand financial sacrifice, she often reminded me. People who truly care about you want you to succeed and be happy. The medical colleagues who had supported me during the crisis became lasting friendships that felt more authentic than my biological family relationships had ever been. Sarah, Tom, Jennifer, and others created a chosen family based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care for each other's well-being. Dr. Williams became both a professional mentor and personal advisor, helping me navigate the emotional aftermath of family estrangement. Sherman, you chose integrity over convenience, truth over comfort. Those decisions define your character. My residency performance excelled as the psychological burden of family manipulation lifted. Without constant crisis calls demanding emergency money, I focused completely on medical training. Without guilt about spending money on myself, I bought proper meals, adequate housing, and necessary textbooks. 2 years after the trial, I received a letter from Madison, written from the halfway house where she was completing community service. Her handwriting looked different, less confident than before, and her words carried genuine remorse for the first time since childhood. Sherman, I know this letter can't undo the hurt I caused, but I want you to know I understand now how wrong we were. Therapy has helped me see that what we did was abuse, not family loyalty. I'm working to become someone worthy of forgiveness, even though I don't expect it. Madison's letter continued with acknowledgement of specific harm she had caused and concrete steps she was taking to change her behavior. She had enrolled in financial counseling, maintained steady employment, and was paying restitution to victims according to court orders. I don't expect you to welcome me back into your life, but I hope someday you'll know that I finally understand the difference between loving someone and exploiting them. I discussed Madison's letter with Emma, who had become more than a colleague during residency. Our friendship had evolved into something deeper, as we spent countless hours together during hospital rotations, sharing experiences and supporting each other through the demands of medical training. People can change if they genuinely want to, Emma observed. But forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. You can forgive someone without allowing them access to hurt you again. 3 years after medical school graduation, Emma and I became engaged during a quiet moment in the hospital break room between emergency calls. Our relationship represented everything healthy relationships should be: mutual support, honest communication, and respect for each other's autonomy and goals. Planning our wedding highlighted the contrast between biological and chosen family. Emma's parents, siblings, and extended family embraced me immediately, treating me with warmth and inclusion I'd never experienced from my own relatives. My medical colleagues, grandmother Rose, and mentors like Dr. Williams created a wedding celebration filled with people who genuinely cared about our happiness. Madison sent a card congratulating us, but didn't request an invitation respecting the boundaries I had established. Her message was brief and appropriate: wishing you both happiness and all the love you deserve. I chose to respond with gratitude for her respect of my boundaries, while leaving future contact possibilities open. Thank you for your kind wishes. I hope you continue growing and healing. My parents made no contact regarding the wedding, which felt appropriate given their choices and consequences. Their absence didn't create sadness because the people who truly mattered were present to celebrate with us. Dr. Williams officiated our ceremony, speaking about the families we're born into versus the families we create through love and choice. Sherman and Emma, you've both learned that authentic relationships are built on mutual respect, not obligation or manipulation. 5 years later, I completed my emergency medicine residency and joined a practice focused on trauma care. My experience with family trauma had given me insight into helping patients navigate crisis situations with empathy and practical support. Grandmother Rose, now 83, and still sharp, lived independently in her senior community and volunteered teaching financial literacy to help other elderly adults recognize and avoid financial abuse. Her experience had transformed her from victim to advocate. Sherman, our family's story, had a terrible middle, but it's having a beautiful ending, she often said. Sometimes the worst experiences teach us the most important lessons. Emma and I bought our first house, a small but comfortable home near the hospital where we both worked. The mortgage payments felt manageable because we weren't supporting fraudulent family emergencies. The peaceful evenings felt precious because we weren't fielding crisis calls from manipulative relatives. Madison completed her probation and maintained steady contact through occasional emails updating me on her progress. She had married someone who supported her growth, found stable employment, and was slowly rebuilding trust with extended family members she had helped deceive. "I'll never stop being sorry for the pain I caused," she wrote on the 5th anniversary of the trial. "But I'm grateful that losing you as a brother taught me how to be a better person. I realized that forgiveness didn't require forgetting or reconciliation. Forgiveness meant releasing anger and resentment that could poison my own well-being." Madison's genuine remorse and concrete changes made forgiveness possible, even though our relationship would never return to what it once was. My story spread through medical communities as an example of how family financial abuse could affect even successful, intelligent adults. Speaking at conferences and writing articles helped other physicians recognize signs of financial manipulation and support colleagues experiencing similar situations. Financial abuse by family members is often overlooked because we assume family relationships are inherently loving, I explained during presentations. But blood relationships don't guarantee healthy dynamics, and success can make you a target for exploitation by people who feel entitled to your achievements. The most profound lesson came from understanding the difference between guilt and boundaries. Guilt had made me send money I couldn't afford to people who were lying about needing it. Boundaries allowed me to distinguish between helping people in genuine need versus enabling people who exploited my compassion. Emma and I started a scholarship fund for medical students experiencing family financial abuse, providing support for students whose families sabotaged their education rather than supporting it. The scholarship recipients often shared stories similar to mine, demonstrating how common this problem was among high-achieving students. Your family's worst decision became something that helps other people, Emma observed as we reviewed scholarship applications. That's a beautiful transformation of pain into purpose. 10 years after my medical school graduation, I attended my class reunion with Emma and our infant daughter, Rose, named for my grandmother. Colleagues shared updates about their lives, careers, and families, many mentioning how my experience had helped them set healthier boundaries with their own relatives. Sherman, you gave us permission to prioritize our well-being over family guilt, Sarah told me. Watching you survive and thrive after setting boundaries showed the rest of us that it was possible. My parents had been released from prison and were living quietly in a different state, working entry-level jobs and reportedly staying out of trouble. I felt no need for contact or reconciliation, but also no lingering anger or resentment. Their consequences were the natural result of their choices, not something I had imposed on them. The final perspective came from little Rose, who would grow up knowing that family means people who support your growth, celebrate your achievements, and respect your autonomy. She would never experience the confusion of love mixed with exploitation that had defined my childhood. As I held my daughter during the reunion surrounded by Emma and friends who had become family, I realized my parents' worst betrayal had led to my greatest blessing. By forcing me to choose between enabling their dysfunction and protecting my well-being, they had inadvertently taught me to value authentic relationships over obligatory ones. Real family isn't determined by genetics or legal documents. Real family consists of people who celebrate your successes without expecting payment, support your goals, without demanding sacrifice, and love you without conditions or manipulation. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable destructive behavior, creating space for authentic relationships to flourish. The lesson I learned and now share with others is simple but profound. You cannot control other people's choices, but you can control your response to those choices. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for psychological health and meaningful relationships. And sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who need the strongest boundaries to protect yourself from their version of love. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who didn't respect your well-being? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments about how you've navigated challenging family relationships. Please like this story. If it resonated with your experiences, subscribe for more content about overcoming family dysfunction and share this with anyone who might benefit from knowing they're not alone in these struggles. Thank you for joining me on this journey from manipulation to freedom, and I hope your own chosen family brings you the love and respect you deserve.